So Kate, right? Yeah. Just met Kate, who works at Channel 4 News. She's fantastic. We just talked about people we love in news. This is Victor, who I've known for quite a few years, because we were involved in his fantastic film he's going to be telling you about a whole lot more. He's just an extremely, extremely compassionate man. In fact, you may be. Our whole really hearts him. He makes incredibly compassionate films. He really feels the lives of the people that he gets involved in, and we love that. So please give him a big roar to get him going. He's going to tell you about a whole lot more.
That's quite an introduction, considering how many compassionate people just know. So thank you. I'm here to tell you about a whole lot more. Kate and I are, and I prepared a reading, so forgive me for the time of my speech. But I began this project 3.5 years ago, and I'd been in a nearly fatal car accident at that point. And during the 14 months that I couldn't walk, I went online and I researched what life is like for people with severe disabilities, both physical and intellectual. And much of what I found was really sobering. But one story about what caught my attention. Lott Industries is in Toledo, Ohio, which is just south of Detroit, and employs 1,200 workers, all with intellectual disabilities. Now, intellectual disabilities, I don't know if you know, these are a range of disabilities that include Down syndrome, autism, cerebral palsy, learning disabilities, and others. What is especially unique about Lott Industries is that they have the highest level certifications and quality ratings for factories in America. For decades, they successfully outcompeted for auto manufacturing contracts for the non-disabled facilities. So these guys were just the top of their game. In fact, since Lott was started in 1945 by parents of kids with disabilities, people have gone to great lengths to relocate their families to Toledo, Ohio, so their kids could have a job that offered them a decent wage and some respect. However, when the local auto industry and the Detroit industry collapsed a few years ago, Lott lost its main contract with Ford, and the factory was faced with an agonizing battle for survival. That's where I came in. Okay, the opportunity as well. A Whole Lot More is really one of the few documentaries ever made about disability planning, I wish there were more. Through the eyes of 3 unforgettable people with disabilities, you see how Lott Industry attempts to adapt to changing times. You understand how badly people with disabilities want to work, and how they are so often denied the opportunity to. But the struggles at Lott Industries are also emblematic of a much wider problem. In the US and the UK, employment for people with intellectual disabilities is at a crisis point. Traditional manufacturing jobs that many people with intellectual disabilities have often done and often excelled at, as at Lott, have disappeared and been outsourced. New schemes to find jobs for people with disabilities in the community are struggling. In the US, less than 1 in 5 people with intellectual disabilities has a job. In the UK, the figure is around 1 in 20. Across the UK, people with disabilities, a few slides, but some this background. Across the UK, people with disabilities traditionally found work at remploy factories. These factories were originally established at the end of the Second World War for disabled war veterans. But in the last year, the government has closed or is closing 54 of 54 remploy factories across the UK, with the possibility of another 18 shutting imminently. And while all things must change, and jobs in the wider community remain the ideal, thousands of newly redundant workers with disabilities are not being helped or looked after. Thousands more were never given the hand up that they deserved in the first place. A Whole Lot More details how hard it can be for someone with a disability to find a basic job, but it also shows how transformative that job can be.
Yeah, what I want to say is this film is really relevant to what's happening in the UK at the moment. I'm a current affairs journalist. I do a lot of news reports about disabled people and the situation they're in. There's a big debate about welfare and giving money to disabled people. What there's not is debate about how, if you want disabled people to work, how you achieve that, what disabled people need and what disabled people want. And what this film really does is give a voice to people to explain what they want and why working is important to them. And I haven't heard that anywhere in the debate in the UK yet, but it's very central to what everyone's talking about.
Together, Kate and I are going to reach out to key disability organisations. We've begun that process, and I've been speaking to Scope, to Paradigm, to Capability Scotland, among many. We are interested in organisations that support inclusion and promote employment options for people with disabilities. I think I'm going to have to skip ahead. Does that include my... goodness. We're going to build a platform that makes it easy for these organisations to host a screening of the Holland Morning discussion panel to follow. So what would a donation to Holland More do today? £300 would support a screening of a whole lot more for around 300 people anywhere in the UK. If a disability organisation decides to charge admission for that screening, let's say £10 a ticket, they could bring in roughly £2,400. So every pound you donate gets multiplied by 8. Every pound you donate eventually becomes a tool in the hand for disability organisations to use to further their message and to further the general message that people with disabilities deserve more work opportunities. And if one local business leader at every screening reorganises, arrives, and changes their approach to hiring people with disabilities, well, you could be changing a person's life. You know? So I've got another page, but I'm going to and I want to thank Kate.